I've been working with the Codex app for the past couple of weeks as my main development tool, and its Worktree feature has helped me a lot to ship code faster and be more productive. And today I'm going to show you how it can help you too. But before, let's imagine this scenario here. You are working on your main branch, doing some maintenance there, and you have to start working on a new feature. You check out a new branch for that, start working, and when you're not done with that yet, you need to go and fix a bug X, doesn't really matter. What you have to do now is either stash those changes, or you can commit an unfinished work and then check out a new branch to replace the one or to move to a new branch, right? And then start working on the bug. And then something else comes along and you have to do the same process over and over. That's what happens when you work without work trees. So let's take a look and understand what a worktree is. And if you know what a worktree is, you can skip ahead. There are timestamps in this video, just go ahead. But if you don't or you need a refresher, here's what it goes. First, let's take a look at that scenario, the scenario that I just explained, which is the scenario without worktrees. You have a central repository, such as GitHub. You clone that into a local folder, okay? So that's your local, you have main in there. And in your local repository, you can only have one checked out branch at a time. So main, for instance, and you're going to work on feature X. Well, you need to create a new branch and check out that branch. And you're going to be locally with check feature X. Then you're going to fix bug Y. You're going to need to check out that other branch and so on and so forth. So you only have always one single branch checked out at a time. And if you need to go back and look at changes into different branches, you keep needing to check out between those branches and always deciding, what do I do with my current uncommitted changes? Okay, that's the issue there. Now, let's say you move to a worktree style of working, and worktrees are a feature of Git, not specifically to Codex, just Codex makes it easier to use worktrees, that's all. With worktrees, you again clone from GitHub into a local folder. So that's your local copy, and you have main in there. And that's the only one single place where you have your Git database. You're not going to have that in the worktrees. What is a worktree? A worktree is a folder, a copy of your code into a separate folder where you can make any changes, okay? And then you can, from there, create a PR or a branch or a have you. That folder normally is attached to a branch, but doesn't need to be, okay? But you can have several of those in parallel. So if you're working with your feature X, you're gonna have one folder for feature X, and it's going to be with the branch feature X. Then you're gonna work on bug Y. You can start a new work tree, meaning you have a new folder with a complete copy of the original code without any of the changes of feature X. So they are independent. So we're gonna work on bug A there. It's a bug A branch and it's independent. And you can have as many as of those folders as you needed, and they are not interfering with each other. All you need to do when you are testing this is you start a server from, or a server in my case, because I'm working with web, but you start that code from that folder, that work tree, and you test it from there. And you can look at the changes exclusive to that folder or work tree, and you review it, and you can start a PR process from there. What can be the issues of working with work trees? Whenever you start a new work tree, if you rely on folder files that are not tracked, for instance, .env.local files or environmental files in general, to set up your database connections or any other secrets that you might have that you need for development, those are not copied because they are not tracked by Git. So you need a way to copy that into those worktree folders. That's one issue that you need to solve. Second, you have multiple copies of your code base. And when you are working with those files, you need to navigate that. So you might have a plugin in your IDE to help you with that, or you might have separate windows so that you can see, okay, this window here is opening in the folder for bug A, and this other window is open for feature X, and so on. So you can see those separately. I understand that all of that can be solved with either plugins or scripts, and you're going to see that one of those cases I solved with scripts, but you're also going to see how Codex makes it easier to work with. Now, first off, let's take a look at the settings here so that you understand what I'm talking about. In Codex, we have environments here, and I have my environment that we're going to look at this randomize my games here. And when you look at this, all it's doing is running Postinstall. because I need to install all of the dependencies, and I have an action here to start my dev server. There is nothing special about this, but running bun install here is going to be important, because if you look at my code, and let me go to the code here, whenever I run bun install, I also run, after the install here, this post install, which is going to run this script here. This script, and I didn't write this code, this is all generated, but what it's doing is it's looking at all of my .local.env files in any of the apps and copying those into the Worktree folders. So that's how I solve the problem of copying local environmental files whenever a new Worktree is created. And Codex makes it easy by just setting this script up. Your script might be a little bit more convoluted than mine. Mine is simple. I just need to install, and after installing with the post install, the environmental files get copied. That's it. Okay. How do you create a new Worktree with Codex? You come here, you create a new thread, you say that you want to work on a new Worktree, you tell it from which branch it's going to start, give it a prompt, and there you go. It's going to create a new Worktree, and you're off to the races with that. Simple as that. Now, I have a couple of examples here of Worktrees that I started. The code is not very important. All I want to do is show you my flow of how to do this and how Codex helps. First, you understand that it's automatically creating Worktrees for you without much effort, with the combination of a script, setting up your environment as you need it. Now, when you have a new Worktree and changes have been made, okay, again, don't mind too much about the code here. You have these two options here. You can either hand off to local, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and then you have branch here, which is my preferred way to work. And that emulates that scenario where I mentioned before, where you have a new folder with a branch. So I'm going to branch into here, okay, and I'm going to create this new branch. You can see that it's prefixed here with Codex. You can change that coming here to the settings. In the settings, you have this Git option here. You can tell which prefix the branch is. This is the default. I left it as is. I don't need anything special from there. So let's get back to this. I'm going to click on branch here, create this branch. And before I do that, I just want to explain one thing here. When I first explained Worktrees and mentioned that Worktrees can be connected to a branch, what Codex does is creates Worktrees without branches attached to them. So it's detached Worktrees. That's how it's called. All it means is it doesn't have a branch connected to it. When I click create on this screen here, it's going to actually create a branch and attach that branch to the Worktree. Nothing else. It's not going to copy locally. It's just going to attach a branch to that Worktree. So let's create this here. I could from here, if I was satisfied with this, just commit and push, commit and create a PR. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to look at this. So now in my normal workflow, this is where I would look at this code, review it. I could test it out. And to test it out, because I have that run dev here, all I need to do is I click on this play button here. It's going to start my servers. And I could navigate to the servers here, either my admin or my web server, test it out, and there you go. I'm done with this. It's simple as that. If I were to stop this server here, because my servers are hard-coded to use these ports, at least for now. I'm stopping the server. I can switch to a different thread in here and do the same thing. Just click on the play button, test the changes into that thread, which would be its own Worktree, right? So because I'm starting each thread in a new Worktree, I can just switch to a different thread in here, start the server in there, and that server would contain only the changes that thread made, which right now is a good moment to say that whenever you see the threads in here and they have this little icon here, you can see that this conversation is running in a local Git Worktree. If I don't have that icon, it was not a Git Worktree. Normally now these days, I'm always starting with a new Git Worktree. I prefer this process now. But that's how you identify if a thread has a Worktree or not. Now, going back to what I was saying, testing is simple. You test from a thread. That thread contains only the changes. When you're done testing, you can ask Codex for changes. The changes then the Codex made is going to be made in that Worktree. You could also open your editor. So I'm going to click on this here. It opened in a different window. If you look at this now, you're going to see that it is in the branch that is associated with that Worktree. I'm going to open the terminal quickly here, and you can see that I have this open in that work tree that was created by Codex, okay? And the changes that were made in there. I can decide to make changes myself manually in this editor here. And if I do, let's say say that this is not going to be Excel for a second, and I switch back to Codex, it's changed. It's not Excel anymore. So let's revert. So it's in sync here. Okay, so you can work both ways if you wanted to do that. When you're done, you can just commit, push, and create a PR. So I personally really like this whole flow here. I request a change in a work tree. Those changes I then check out in a branch associated with that work tree. I can open my editor if needed, make the changes, or ask Codex to make changes, test it out in isolation, and then from the Codex IDE, I can just commit and create a PR. And again, if I leave this blank here, it's going to auto-generate a commit message, a good commit message for me. That's it. That's my main flow. That's the one thing that I really enjoy. And that's the one thing that I've been doing a lot. And I guarantee that if you decide to use this workflow, you're going to be very much productive with your code base. Now, that's not the only option when handling work trees. We're going to see a couple of different ones. The other option that you have here is handoff to local. So handoff to local, what it does is, well, it hands off the changes to local. It doesn't eliminate the work tree. It just copies the changes into your local copy of the repository. So I'm going to do this in an existing branch first, okay? I'm going to select main, and it's going to tell me, okay, I'm already checked out into main. So I'm going to look at these changes here, and I say copy into main, and I'm going to apply. When I apply these changes and I switch to my editor, I'm going to look at main here. We can see now that I have changes made into my local main branch. So this is local. Let me open my terminal again. Let's clear this up so it's easier to see. There you go. It's in my main branch. Now, what I can do is make any changes in here. So let's say I'm not satisfied with this. Let me close my terminal, and I'm gonna say instead of analytics here is, I don't know, analytic. Okay. It's gonna fail. I don't mind that much. So I made a change in my local copy. You're gonna see that the changes that I made in my local copy are not in sync with this, because what Codex is showing in here is the changes that exist in the work tree. And I made my changes in my main branch, my current local branch. So they are not in sync. How can I make change locally and have Codex be aware of that? I'm gonna click on handoff to local, but I can do to local and I can do from local. So if I'm doing from local, I'm gonna send the changes that I made locally to that work tree, and I can do that by hitting apply here. And what's happening now is that because, and you can see in the background here, because I made changes in a place where Codex also have changes in the work tree, they are conflicting. So what I can do is I can say override the work tree, and now it's overriding the work tree, and they are in sync. In the same way, I could ask Codex here to make more changes to this code base, and Codex would make changes in the work tree, but that would not be in sync with my local changes. I would have to come once here again and ask Codex to sync or hand off the changes into my local copy here. And I could do apply again. If there are no conflicts, this is going to work, or I can just override my local changes using the changes from the work tree. Okay, I'm just gonna revert this back again, and I'm gonna do this one more time. So I'm gonna from local override the work tree, and there you go. That's a handoff to local. All right. I normally don't use this process. I prefer the other one, and most of the time, the majority of the time, I'm using the other process. But this is useful in a scenario where you are aggregating changes in a single branch from different threads. So for instance, let me just open a different thread in here. Instead of handing off to an existing branch right now, I can create a new branch. And if I click on this checkout locally now, I'm not only going to just create a new branch, I'm also going to check out that branch locally into my local copy of the repository, but I don't need to do that. And if I don't do that, it's going to create a branch in my local repository, but it's not going to check out. That's simple as that. Now, why I'm saying all this, because this is important if, let's say, you're gonna have a big change that you are going to big bang a release later on. Let's say a version 2 of your new API or a redesign of your whole website. But you don't want to do that in a single thread. You want to do that in multiple threads. So what you can do is you start a thread, you create a new branch the first time. The second time you start a new thread with a new work tree, instead of creating a branch from there, you can always hand off to the existing branch that you create. Let's say it's a V2 of your API, right? So you're going to create a branch named V2. Every single thread that you start, you then hand off to this same branch. So it's going to accumulate all the changes. So when you're done with all the threads and tasks that you need to do for your V2, you can then create a PR, manually create a PR from that branch and merge it into main later on. So that's the main use case that you have for handing off local changes, handing off to a local branch. Again, I haven't used that a lot, but that's an option that you have. In any case, this is how you can use Worktrees with Codex. I hope that made clear for you how productive you can be, especially with that first flow. Personally, that's my choice of flow to work with Worktrees in Codex. And if you are interested in my opinions of Codex or a general overview of how Codex work, you can check this other video here. Until then, thanks for watching.